Setting up an ALB for your ECS cluster in AWS, a step-by-step guide. This podcast is brought to you by Business Compass LLC. We are an Amazon Web Services advanced consulting partner. We build and migrate workloads to Amazon Cloud. Our website is businesscompassllc.com. Our phone number is 973-638-2228. Our email address is contact@businesscompassllc.us. Introduction, project overview and prerequisites. Amazon Web Services, AWS, offers powerful tools for deploying and managing applications in the cloud. Elastic Container Service, ECS, simplifies the orchestration of Docker containers, while application load balancers, ALBs, ensure traffic is efficiently distributed across container instances. This podcast will walk you through the steps to set up an ALB for your ECS cluster in AWS. Prerequisites. Before we begin, ensure you have the following prerequisites: an AWS account, AWS CLI installed and configured, Docker installed on your local machine, basic knowledge of Docker and ECS concepts, preparing your AWS environment, VPC and Docker configuration. To start, set up your AWS environment. This includes creating a virtual private cloud, VPC, and configuring Docker. Create a VPC. Open the VPC dashboard in the AWS Management Console. Create a new VPC with public and private subnets. Ensure you have appropriate route tables and internet gateways. Configure Docker. Ensure Docker is installed on your local machine. Test your Docker installation by running a simple Docker container, such as Hello World. Creating and pushing ECR images. Building and storing your container images. Next, build your Docker image and push it to the Amazon Elastic Container Registry, ECR. Create an ECR repository. Open the ECR dashboard and create a new repository for your images. Build and tag your Docker image. Build your Docker image locally using Docker build t your image name, tag the image name. For ECR, Docker tag your image name latest less than AWS_account_ID dkr.ecr.region amazons.com/your repo name latest. Push your image to ECR. Authenticate Docker to your ECR registry. AWS ECR get login password region Docker. Login username AWS password statin less than AWS_account_ID dkr.ecr.region amazonos.com. Push the image. Docker push less than AWS_account_ID dkr.ecr.region amazonos.com/your repo name latest. Establishing your ECS cluster. Launching your cluster. Now, create your ECS cluster. Create a cluster. Open the ECS dashboard and create a new cluster. Choose the appropriate cluster template, for example, EC2 or Fargate. Launch ECS instances. For an EC2 cluster, launch instances within your VPC's subnets. Ensure these instances have the necessary IAM roles and security groups. Defining task definitions, blueprints for your ECR images. Task definitions act as blueprints for your Docker containers. Create a task definition. Open the ECS dashboard and navigate to task definitions. Create a new task definition and specify container definitions, including the ECR image, memory, and CPU requirements. Network configuration. Configure network settings like the VPC, subnets, and security groups. Creating services within your cluster. Managing task definitions and load balancing. Next, create services within your ECS cluster and set up load balancing. Create a service. Open the ECS dashboard and navigate to your cluster. Create a new service using your task definition. Specify the desired number of tasks and deployment type, for example, rolling update. Set up an ALB. Open the EC2 dashboard and navigate to load balancers. Create a new application load balancer, specifying subnets and security groups. Create target groups and register ECS tasks as targets. Configure listener rules to route traffic to your ECS tasks. Conclusion, recap and next steps. In this podcast, we've walked through the steps to set up an ALB for your ECS cluster in AWS. We covered preparing your AWS environment, creating and pushing ECR images, establishing your ECS cluster, defining task definitions, and managing services and load balancing. Next steps. Monitor your ECS services and ALB to ensure they perform as expected. Explore advanced ECS features like service discovery and autoscaling. Consider setting up C/CD pipelines to automate your deployment process. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Please share this podcast, visit our website and follow our social media links.